Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. I am so honored and pleased to have the opportunity to work with Veshonte and their team in bridging a discourse between the works of art featured in my exhibition and their own interpretations. This project was inspired by lives unseen and stories unheard, but have nevertheless been integral to the development of our world as we know it. As a recent Williams graduate and an art historian, the histories of the laboring Black Venus and the genesis of Williams College were never too far away from one another. Sometimes a little too close for comfort. I might never come to know the lives of Moni, a woman, nor London, a boy, or the girl Chloe, or even Prince, a boy who was sold before Williams's death in 1754. Their existence is marked only by a small document, recorded to be owned by Ephraim Williams in his will. Or on a personal note, the life of Charlie May Harding, my paternal great-grandmother, who I learned arrived in Boynton Beach, Florida in 1922, picking pineapples. Or the stories of my grandmother, who taught me how to fold the towels, just like she did in Mr. Swish's Tallahassee home all those years ago. This temporal and eternal distance, combined with an almost spiritual-like desire to know my ancestors, is what I dedicate my work to this evening. This exhibition contends with the fact that we may never fully know the histories we desire to seek, but never suggest they aren't present. In this way, they reverberate down the ages, through song, through dance, through story. These reverberations, I believe, is what will be the product of what we'll witness here tonight. Again, thank you so very much for joining us this evening.
Names. What's in a name? In Romeo and Juliet, Juliet swears that it doesn't matter what Romeo's name is because a rose by any other name would swell as sweet. And that's cute, but also like, bitch, what? Your families literally hate each other and have for years. I'm not so certain that your true love can prevail over all. The cards seem a little bit stacked against you there. Also, side note, Shakespeare was a white guy who got famous for stealing other people's ideas, which kind of sounds familiar, like Elvis did, except this time he was stealing Black music, or like Christopher Columbus, except he was stealing land and people and pillaging and poisoning and raping. Oh, sorry, didn't mean to get too deep yet. Back to names. Yes. Names matter. They mean things. If I was in school and I turned to my classmate and asked for a rubber to erase the mistake I'd made, they'd make sure to let me know that in this country, it's an eraser, not a rubber, and that if I want a rubber, English class might not be the place to go for one. Well, unless, like... But yes, you get my point. I'll give you another example. This guy, his name is Tchaikovsky, but if I were to say something more like Tchaikovsky, I'm more than certain that I would be corrected with a quickness. So, when we see a woman whose name may be Watermelondrea, why is it that we question the validity of her name? Some insist that, oh, I'm not about to hire you if your name is Watermelondrea. I'm not going to hire you. It's just not going to happen. Is that mean? To answer the question, yes, it is mean. It's discriminatory, and it's yet another example of the political checking that we enforce on Black people and other people of color. Why is it that our names have to fit into a box? What would happen if we just said, fuck the box, and just did? But again, back to names. Names signify what a thing or entity is. They give us language to communicate and address each other in the most basic of ways. I have a name, you have a name, we have names, hooray, right? And yet. So When I was an undergrad, I was in a small theater program of about 20-ish kids max, and there were small class sizes, maybe 12, 15 kids, and only one black girl per year, really. The year before me had more than one, but after the first year, it was really only one black girl per year. One tiny little brown chocolate chip in a sea of pancake. And I was good friends with the black girl in the year below me. I mean, we kind of had to be. There's the only us there, right? The only people who can relate to what it is to be a sad little chocolate chip in a whole pancake. And you know, I did actually really like her as a person, but that is beside the point. So, we both wear glasses, and we both have brown skin, and that is about as far as the facial similarities go. We have vastly different personalities and voices, and yet the number of times that we got mistaken for each other was just... I know, it's harder to recognize faces from a race that is not your own, but also, what the fuck? It was a ratio of 1 to 10. I mean, make it make sense. 2 little brown chocolate chips against everybody else, and they couldn't even have the decency to be able to tell which brown chocolate chip was which. 2, Right, again, back to names. Names are vital, okay? They tell us something about who we are, and think about the power in the name of black woman. I'll admit, I am a little bit biased. If you hadn't noticed because you, like, don't see color or something, I am a black woman. Behold, my brown skin and textured hair, yes. And you know what? I love it here. We are smart and beautiful and funny go-getters, and this is in spite of everything they put us through. You know, the black woman is often the pinnacle of the black family because of all the time that slave owners and the government have spent separating the black man out of the family picture. Now, the black woman had to hold the family down, and do you know what she got for that? Not enough. Actually, that makes me think of the time I made the mistake of falling down a Facebook rabbit hole where a group of older white people were reminiscing on the black help that they had in their childhood homes. They all spoke very fondly about a Gladys or an Ethel or a Dorothy, but as I read their comments, I couldn't help but think about what David Ickard said in his TED Talk, that these people felt more than comfortable calling the most important adults in their childhoods by their first names in the 60s. Think about that, how the other black children in Dorothy, Gladys, or Ethel's lives would not dared to have called them by their first names. So they knew her name, but they sure as hell didn't put any respect on it. What I am saying, and what I have been saying, is, names are important. They are our labels. They reflect something about how we're viewed, and more importantly, how we view ourselves. This is the reason why we can never stop saying their names when another black person is shot in the street. Names are our first identifiers, and without them, you are able to take an entire group of people from their home country, strip them of their language and their culture so that they are easier to manipulate, and force them to depend on your systems which only benefit you. So yeah, Juliet was saying that if Romeo had a different name, it could have been on and poppin', but I am saying that we need to focus on the names that we have. If we lose our connection to them, we can never learn from them, grow from them, or change them. So, yeah, names, they matter. Thank you.
Let me just adjust this here, move this here. There we go. Now we're looking good. Whew. Child, I can't move these limbs for nothing. Hi. Do you want to be my new best friend? Hi. My name is... Hi. My name is... Oh, you must be new here. This is what we at the toy shelves call last call. It's when everyone in the store picks their very last picks before we close. We all got to pitch so that somebody's mama makes their kids take us home. Trust me, it's no one's favorite part of the day, but it's a necessary evil, so good luck. And I'm still looking great, especially at my age. As I've always said, I'm like a fine wine. I get better with age. You know, I've been on this shelf for 42 years. Yeah, that's right. 42. I know, you're thinking, how could that be true? Well, black don't crack, so. And you look brand new. I bet you don't even know who I am. Well, you were probably manufactured in the past 3 months. Let me introduce myself. My name is Black Barbie. Yeah, that's right. I'm her. I'm the Black Barbie. I mean, people usually call me Black Barbie, but my name is truly just Barbie. My other Barbie friends on the shelf below me, nobody call her White Barbie, even though she's white. Anyways, a lot of people got me mixed up with Christy, who actually came before me. She was released in 1969. I was released in 1980, so she's older than me. Let's get that correct. She might be revamped every couple of years, but at the end of the day, she's the old lady, not me. All right? She's down the aisle. She claims to be the first Black Barbie doll, but between you and me, that's not even true. The real first Black Barbie doll was this doll called Colored Francine. She was released in 1966 for all of us. Francine's been dead for years, but you could say she was the first of the first. Just don't tell Chrissy that, though, because she'd get touchy. Anyways, Chrissy and Colored Francine were the first Black Barbie dolls, but I am the first Black Barbie, and there's a difference. Those Black Barbie dolls were just friends of Barbie, but I am Barbie. Got it? I am Barbie. I am Barbie. I am Barbie. I was released in 1980 along with Hispanic Barbie and Asian Barbie. Those two were just called Barbie, though. I was designed specially by Kitty Black Perkins, a black fashion designer. Kitty and I changed history. She made me everything that black girls should be. She made me beautiful and stylish and classy and brown skin and rich and skinny. And I came in a special box that reads, "She's black. She's beautiful. She's dynamite." Yeah, that's right, dynamite. That's what makes me the perfect self. I'm just as beautiful as white Barbie, and I look more natural in Barbie's roles than anyone else. You know, I sell best as Black Barbie secretary, or Black Barbie waitress, or Black Barbie cashier, or Black Barbie rapper. Bringing beauty to the service industry, you know? I'm only still on the shelf because those Black Barbies are selling out. White children love to buy those versions, so by the time they get to my aisle, they've spent all their money. That's okay, though. I'm happy to be bought in any form as long as I'm black, and I'm beautiful, and I'm dynamite. Anyway, since I've been here so long, I've got all types of dolls come through the shelves. Black dolls have been through a lot. I mean, there was Colored Francine, and then there was Christy, and then there was me. We were like the supremes of black dolls. I was Diana Ross, of course. And Christy and Colored Francine were the other two. I mean, we can't forget, they're just friends of Barbie. When it was just the three of us, there was a little bit of, shall we say, tension. And I can't blame them. I mean, when I hit the shelves, it was just Christy and Colored Francine, and neither of them was being bought except for one or two black girls whose mothers could afford it. So So by the 1980s, I show up, this gorgeous, glamorous Barbie, and they couldn't take it. More competition, I guess. Sales really didn't change when I show up, but things got a little bit more crowded, I guess. And so in the 1990s, there were these groovy girls, these stupid-looking stuffed dolls with no glamour or luxury or anything. They were just kids, though. Not much to them. Terrible for conversation, I'll tell you that. And then there were these Cabbage Patch Kids. Oh, God. I know I'm not supposed to say it, but whoever thought of those ugly things were worth more than anyone's time should be shot. I'm sorry, but it's true. There were just these chubby little babies that came in all different colors so the kids could practice childhood. Ridiculous. Childhood is not glamorous or luxurious. It's common. And yet they were still being bought. And the black dolls were left on the shelves for the most part, though. Silly little black babies. And then in 2001, everything changed. Bratz dolls showed up on the shelves, and they started making a complete mess of things. They got ghetto with it, showing their navels and wearing revealing clothing. I mean, what are you trying to sell to these kids? And they were the first to have real black features on the doll. That was a tough time on the shelves. None of us were getting sold except for white Barbies and those terrible Bratz. Those silly little black video hoes were super popular. Meanwhile, I, the pinnacle of style and class, remained on this shelf. That was a hard time, but we've since recovered. And then there was Addie Walker, and when she first came in, I was like, oh, let me take this little young girl under my wing. She was so pitiful. Her clothes were in rags, and her hair was all coarse and uncombed, and I asked her where she was from. She said she was a slave. Yeah, that's right, a slave. This doll, for kids, was a black child in the middle of chattel slavery. Whoever came up with that idea must have been on drugs or something. I knew she would never be sold to any young girl, so I prepared her to be on the shelves with me for a long time. And you know what? I was wrong. Addie was flying off those shelves. White people and black people alike were buying her. It's like they wanted for every little black girl to aspire to slavery or to aspire to have a struggle the way she did. They read her books, they heard the story of the horrors she went through as a slave, and they branded it as a story of resilience. All of a sudden, black parents wanted their kids to have dolls with struggles. When you're a black doll, you're no longer an object for make-believe. Suddenly, make-believe was real. Racism was part of your make-believe. And people ate that up. They entirely skipped over Chrissy and Color Francine and me. And I'm literally right here, the picture of beauty and luxury. And these people are purchasing a slave all over again. I mean, where is taste? I'm not some friend of the main character, honey. I am the main character. I'm Black Barbie. I am Barbie. I am Barbie. I am Barbie. Anyways, I've been talking too much. I gotta try to get bought, so. I hear white Barbies don't have this issue. I've been hearing them chatting from afar, and they talk about their outfits and their dream houses and their Kens. And this might not be true, but I've noticed that every time one of them is bought, the next one in line immediately knows that she's going to be bought next. There's no one fighting. All kinds of occupations, and they're always getting sold out. Even the pooper scooper Barbie sells out. Sometimes I think there's something wrong with me. I think I must be defective or something. Maybe my dress isn't as pretty as white Barbie's. Sorry, I have to ask this. Why do you think I haven't been bought yet? I mean, what do they have that I don't, I'm beautiful. I'm wearing the finest clothes. I have an award-winning smile. I do everything that white Barbie does. I vacation in black Malibu. I have a black dream house. I'm in a very committed relationship with black Ken. I can be a black Barbie doctor or a black Barbie veterinarian or a black Barbie politician or I'm black Barbie. I am Barbie. I am Barbie. I am Barbie. But who is Barbie? Barbie's wealth. Barbie's beautiful. Barbie's skinny. Barbie's fashion. Barbie's luxury. Barbie can do anything. Barbie's an executive. Barbie is an astronaut. Barbie's a pooper scooper. Barbie's a pop star. Barbie is Barbie's white. Whoa. That's it. That's the problem. I'm the knockoff. I'm only beautiful when white Barbie's beautiful. I'm only successful when white Barbie's successful. I'm only an astronaut if white Barbie's an astronaut. So then who am I without Barbie? Am I just a black doll? Am I a slave? Am I a video hoe? Am I a rag doll? Am I a whiny baby? I don't know who I am. I'm only black Barbie next to white Barbie. I'm only sellable when I'm in the right costume. I'm not even Barbie's sidekick. I'm Barbie's shadow. I'm not enough. Oh my God. Oh my God, a kid is coming to our shelves. I'm gonna be bought. Ciao. She's reaching for me. Oh my God, she's reaching for me. Oh my God. Hi, my name is Black Barbie. Do you want to be my new best friend? See you ladies later. I'm going home with a black little girl. I've always knew it would be me. See ya, wouldn't want to be. No, come back, little girl, come back. She just grabbed the last white Barbie doll off the shelf. This must be a mistake. I'm just the same as white Barbie. Little girl, I think you picked up the wrong Barbie. You meant to get me. We can go to Black Malibu together. Hi. I don't think I've seen you before. My name is Black Barbie. Do you want to be my new best friend?
I need a breath after that. Hello everyone, my name is Julius Ria. I'm a poet and a playwright and an artistic producer from the San Francisco Bay Area. I'm really proud to be here. As it's written in your programs, this piece is entitled In My Mother's Words, and I'd like to share a little context about what I mean by that. As a writer and a poet, I get this discussion from the women in my family. I have so many stories, Julius. I have so many stories. All I need to do is just to sit down with you And then you can write it, and you can turn it into a novel, or a play, or a movie, so that everyone can know my story. In lieu of that, over the last 3 days, I decided to hold a two-hour digital workshops with my mother so that I could guide her through the process of creating a story for herself. So with that, I would like to share with you Jory Wright's first ever story, performed by her son, Julius Rhea. So, I walked into Tom's office, looking at the window while he talked about his weekend. His office is plain, it's a bit boring too. And in the middle of the room, he has a table with no room to the north, and there's no chair for me to sit down. And I noticed in that window a large amount of bird poop just splattered, running down. And it was white and black with a little bit of yellow. And as he continued to talk, I realized I actually had a stake in this conversation. He was leaving his position, and I was to take control of it. It seemed as I was in slow motion. He continued to say to me, "This is your position." That was at the beginning of the week. The next time I spoke to him, I noticed the poop again and how it made even more of a mess. And we are on the 12th floor, the top floor. And as I listened to him, there is now an abstract design made by the birds. And I noticed this type of progression. The colors began to merge all as one, not separate like before. And conversely, this conversation diverted from where we started. The job was not mine, but it was up for a deeper conversation with the powers that be. And the day was now Friday. And actually, 10 days have passed. And I have moved from, "It's yours," to "It's a conversation," to "I don't know." Tom is approximately 6'1" something, on the slender side. His hair is brown in the winter, but it turns reddish brown in the summer. And he has, all of his teeth. He has a nice smile, and Tom has blue eyes. And he has stubble on his face. It's difficult, actually, to describe him here writing this. I don't know why. And even though I do consider him a mentor in this job, I come with vast knowledge and experience that is not even being utilized here at my current role at this organization. And we talk again. And now we are ready to address the elephant in the room. That large picture window is still decorated with the bird shit. Art. And I notice this more because I can not bear to look at him directly. And now the conversation that I can't wait to have is being shelved again. And as I look over my shoulder while leaving, just the thought of how the bird poop was being handled was exactly how I am being handled. And it's hard for me to admit that my experience here has brought me to the level of poop. And it's eye-opening that the birds seem more organized with their poop than Tom is with this conversation. And me, as a black woman, executive, and enter subject matter here expert, have to bend and double over for much less than a creative pattern on the wall, and much less than to have anything handled at all. So now today is Wednesday, and this dark omniscient is taking over, and the poop on the wall has conformed to life, confirming and justifying that what people think I am is not what I'm willing to wait for. What I want, answers, justice, but what I'm left with is bird shit. Thank you.
Now I'm going to tell you something I learned a while ago. Men, like white folks, learn to take. It's mouths and tired eyes who will teach you first. Then the silence. Silence so loud it becomes noise, screams, whimpers, uncontrollable laughter, anything to drown out its deafening sound. The prayers are next. Prayers discovered in tears which take up way too much space. Prayers with words stuck in between each tooth. Prayers that aren't the ones she means. And finally, you will hear it, no, see it, in the stories she tells and the ones she could only live out. Listen closely. Her story still speaks. It's mama's and mama's mama, her mama and her mama's mama. She grabbed as many as she could, but not much she could do in the smoke. She grabbed as many as she could and never looked back. No one ever figured out how she made her way from the South. She must have run 100 miles at least to make her way downtown. You know, she just ran. From the way she ran, it didn't matter what the date was or what was on the books. You knew she was running to freedom. I wonder what she would have thought about me running for nothing but a blue ribbon. If she would have laughed or cried or screamed. But I guess more likely she wouldn't have made a sound. She never talked much, not since she ran. Where she was running from, no one quite knew for sure. It was blurred, one border from the next. It was all the same, really. It was chains and white folks, backspin and fair-skinned babies that ain't running the family. It was fields and debts which grew but never shrank. So it didn't matter to her much, nor the rest, who asked where she was running from, only that she had to run. So you see, no one would have blamed her for running. Out of hope, out of luck, out of breath even. She had been running for as long as she could remember, so no one would have blamed her when smoke filled a house still grieving the sound of her husband's voice. Since the coal dust had gotten greedy and evicted the air from his lungs and lulled her baby into a silence which itself knew was too quiet. No one would have blamed her if she had gotten tired. So you see, if you listen closely, you can hear something whispering. It's in the adrenaline pulsing in her veins that athletes like to call a runner's high. I'm gonna tell you something I learned a while ago. Men, like white folks, learn to take. She got on that bus and just never came back. Well, only when she had 4 kids and bags. Bags which never did go away in the 60 years since. And the truth is, she had nothing against the sun, it was the trees she didn't like. She didn't like how indifferent they always were. How they never screamed or even whispered as blood dripped from their branches to their roots. How they stood there, silent, at the whistles and bowed heads, the disgust and averted eyes, so she left for the fog and brick instead. It wasn't long until she fell hard, and I mean hard, into that man who looked at her sweetly and called her pretty. He was the kind of man that could make even the smog in a tiny 2-room flat in the middle of North Philly look like royalty. She was only 17, but she knew he was a man her dreams just hadn't recognized yet. She never felt pretty till she met him. Well, maybe it was that no one had ever looked at her like that before. It's just, if you meet a man whose first words when you say terrified at 18, I'm pregnant, are, will you marry me? What else is there but to say I do? To dance around the room in the pretty little blue dress you dreamed about in that windowsill downtown that God knows you couldn't afford, but he saved up all his pocket cash doing God knows what so he could buy you just so his eyes could swallow you whole. And if he was the kind of man who wailed as loudly as you on the bathroom floor the night your belly became a gravesite, what could you have done but cry softly to yourself when he said it was you who ruined his life, that he needed space to find himself? What would you have done but put on that perfect little blue dress that barely fit a woman who had grown to make space for 3 kids and wait up all night till you saw his red car stop silently at midnight, till he stood there before you with his eyes lost in liquor and another woman's dress and whisper something sweet enough to lure him back into bed? It's just, if a man made you feel so pretty you forgot about the trees, wouldn't you pray not to God but a belly? Your belly? As it began to swell, it didn't take long for that girl who left the sun and indifferent trees to learn something about the man who swept her off her feet. Listen closely. Her words whisper between her eyes and tired bed sheets. I'm gonna tell you something I learned a while ago. Men, like white folks, learn to take. Well, she learned early on that women are dumb. Or maybe it's that men can't help themselves and women can be bought, so she did the only thing she could do. Well, the only thing a woman like her would do, she chose herself. Well, no, she chose him, but that was only after he convinced her he was the kind of man who would never leave. And sometimes he screams, and sometimes she cries, and sometimes they don't talk about what they need. And sometimes the world hurts them both, so they laugh and make love and never talk about the women and men they are not. I'm gonna tell you something I learned in my mother's dreams, but more like nightmares she refuses to believe. It goes something like this. Men, like white folks, learn to take. It was on the playground I first learned I was supposed to be loved for my labor. That's true when I learned that I was the matchmaker, not the one being matched or made, desirable in a kind of exotic way. The way you don't tell your mother about, the way you take from and never quite remember their name, the place that all those who need to feel something could go free of charge as long as they whispered something sweet in your ear. I'm gonna tell you something I learned from my mama, and her mama's mama. And all the other women who have grown real tired. Men, like white folks, learn to take. They never give for free. They take your time, your empathy, and your emotional availability. They take your genius and your creativity. They take your style and even your skin color. They take your body, your dignity. They take your insecurity and then your pretty. And soon, if you ain't careful, they take everything you own, including your soul, and swallow you whole.
We picked your cotton, grew your indigo, bubbled and boiled, burned in your sugar and cane, broke backs over rice, ironed broadcloth and pressed taffeta, took lashes for white lies, swat away geese from those lovely fertile flowers, so in bloom, pushed your hoes, held your woes, and ran your mills into daybreak, dreamt of death between those tandem teeth of the Whitney gin. Valeted your carriages and loitered round back. Fanned your daughters with wisp ostrich breeze. A meniscus of bosom canvassing jewels, silver and gold. Fat of bacon, hush puppies thrown. I'm here to hush no more. Did you know that my grandmother was one too? Well, what do you think? Could you? Bore, muscled machine. My Venus died. My father and uncle, they didn't want my help. And so, when they walked up to the podium, crying collectively, and didn't say, she was a phenomenal spirit, a woman worth more than words, too good for words, too good for this world. She lived a wonderful life, surrounded and supported by her 4 sons and husband, and lived a wonderful life. When they walked up to the podium and crying collectively and said, she was a great woman, a great mother, a lovely being. She did as she was told, lived a wonderful life, and got married on a porch. She bore and raised 5 men out of the goodness of her heart, and lived a wonderful life. Bore, muscled machine. She bore and bore and bore and bore, and to be the only grandchild able to visit her, and to see her on her deathbed, moments from mortis, gasping for bits of living, but still smiling, broke me, broke muscled machine. My Venus died, and I did too. But in my Venus's death brought peaceful transition from labor to reward. So, when my Venus awoke to a burning cross in her yard, with flames licking the grass, she kissed the grass with her feet and swept the ashes before cockcrow. When she only had peas to eat, she left school to pick cotton. And when she died, she was survived by shells of men. My other Venus was only 13 and just wanted to satiate her thirst. 1 Negro at a time, the clerk said. So she waited on the carriage block, and it felt somewhat familiar. And as she grazed her hand along the polished marble, and she remembered to prepare that salt bath for her mother's bloody, swollen feet. That running and grunting and bustling and bending for that white family she worked for. And her mother's mother, and her mother's mother, and her mother's mother, and her mother's mother. And so on. But when the teacher called, Betty? Betty? Betty! My Venus turned from the window, stood up, and said, I will not be a maid. And so, I tittle at my keyboard, instructed to write about me and my experiences. And I stand up here, instructed to speak about me and my experiences. And yet, all I can think about, all I can type about, all I can speak about are my Venuses. And what they did, and the actions they took, and the decisions they made. Loss of autonomy, struggle, soar, leap, bound, memory, prevail, light, has led me here to this stage. To not take the brunt, eat the words, swallow my tongue, turn the cheek, save face, sit tight and closed and quiet. Everything I do is in their honor. Mother, Miss Essie King, Miss Betty Allen Davis, and Miss Jessie Norman. Thank you.
I was 8 years old when I buried the notion of childhood, of innocence, of softness, being soft. It is buried under the porch of our house by the park, the only marker being notes of forgiveness never came. I do not visit it, not anymore, not for a while. I used to sit next to the hole I dug in my chest, peer into it, and beg for resurrection. Begging only works for children. My childhood death was quick, no hospice care or palliative care. My childhood died while I was on the phone with the ambulance, yelling so loud I missed its death rattle. When the coroner came, she gave a cause of death. Being an early developer, C-cup in 4th grade. My childhood left no will and testament, only tests that meant I was still allowed to exist, but not like any of my friends. No, they did not have the specter of death grasping their shoulders, following in their shadows. When I grieved, raged against the unfairness, grew vases against the wall, those around me grieved as well. My mother did not want to see me in the grave next to my childhood. I remember my mother's tears as she told me to wear undershirts, beat me for not obeying, her tears mixing with mine. Keep your head down, wear clothes that are plain, loose, wear a cardigan in the Mississippi heat, and whatever you do, do not bounce. Walk on the balls of your feet, not your heels, so that you don't bounce. Maybe that will inoculate me from the illness that stole my childhood. My mother is a medical researcher, a geneticist, taught me the importance of replicable experiments, of hypotheses, of peer-reviewed results. So here are my findings about my childhood demise. 1, People will call you fast, call you grown. Both of these things are fates worse than death. 2, victims do not look like me. 3, at 13, a plastic surgeon will tell you that he really does recommend a breast reduction, but he has moral issues about performing the surgery so young. 4, if you wear an underwire bra 7 days a week, 23.5 hours a day, you'll find it disquieting when you take it off to shower. The feeling of your breast moving, touching, bouncing. 5, to fix this, you should add on a sports bra. Make sure it's 2 sizes too small to really step up the compression. Don't wear it to sleep though. You can't breathe deeply enough to sleep. 6, victims don't look like you. 7, it's possible to be sexy without knowing what sex is. 8, people own your body enough to remark upon it, to envy it, to despise it, to touch it. But victims don't look like you. 9, at 17, you will stand in front of the same plastic surgery as he tells you that he will not perform the surgery. You see, double binding for years actually caused permanent damage to your sternum and the floating ribs in your chest. You look him in the eye and say, I have already buried my innocence, and if you do not do this surgery, you will be burying me. 10, 3 pounds from each side amounts to about 5 cup sizes. You will breathe easy for the first time 3 days after your 18th birthday. This feeling will not last. Sarah Bartman, the Hottentot Venus, had droves of onlookers, poking and prodding. When she died, her body was sold to be dissected and displayed. The Venus of Willendorf statue from about 30,000 years ago, when found, was made fun of by some Dutch asshole, remarking on the absurdity of her breast, her tummy, her thighs. Researchers now think it is a version of a person looking down on her own body. I thought that I would get my body back after I went under the knife. I bled for it. I begged for it. And still I carry a funeral procession on my chest. A hearse follows with my thighs. No flowers adorn this veil. I hope that when my body joins the ground next to my childhood, my Venus body will become ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Only my bones will remain unremarkable, and I'll get to rest. Thank you.